Most of the coaches and consultants think that sales is about handling objections. Price, timing, I need to think about it. But the truth is, there's only one real objection in sales. And until you understand this, you will keep losing deals. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 9 parts that are necessary to actually close a call with 100% of conviction to turn that show up into collected dollars. My name is Wojciech Dąbrowski, and I help coaches and consultants reach new heights when it comes to the revenue numbers. I scale coaches to 6 figures per month in revenue with one-to-many selling systems, such as webinars, challenge funnels, and all of that good stuff. And the thing I see often is that the coaches, they are great at what they teach, but they are terrible about managing sales teams. I will share with you lessons I learned from my mentors, who are the best in the industry, and also from my practice of running my own agency and actually now managing 5 closers full-time. So yeah, I went through that, so I will share with you the best practices to actually increase your conversion. So let's dive into it. And the first step we need to start with, objections is not a problem. And because I see many trainers, sales trainers, giving their advice online about, you need to use this wording, this word track to actually handle this objection, that objection, and all that stuff. But in reality, the best salespeople I know, and I train my salespeople to the best abilities, they prevent objections. So they don't need to handle much objections because most of the people are sold before the call, obviously, and also call is well conducted, so they see the conversion. And so what's the real problem? I know that I write terribly, but I'm almost certain that you'll read that. Real problem, it's the trust, and that's the biggest problem. Let me explain. Because most people think objections are the problem, and they think the sales is about overcoming them, like price objections, timing objections, but in reality there's only one objection: trust. Because let's think for a moment. If someone truly trusts you, they will find the money. But if they don't trust you, you can have the best offer in the world and they still don't buy. That's why sales isn't only about persuasion, it's about building trust fast. And it starts in the first minutes of the call. The second point, the first 2 minutes of the sales call determines everything. Because people detect authenticity extremely quickly. Within seconds, they can feel your tone of voice, your confidence, whether you're actually listening or just reading a random script. Because if the conversation feels scripted, the report breaks immediately. And honestly, based on observations from my calls and my salespeople calls, the best sales calls never feel like sales calls. They feel like genuine conversations. And even myself, I made this mistake. Because in the beginning, when I started training my first salesperson, it was after 6 weeks of starting my own agency. I wanted to outsource sales fast. Because I was good, so I was closing more than 36% of people on the calls without any problem. I started training my first salesperson in my life. And what I realized is they don't know how to close without experience. So I said to myself, okay, let me actually write a script that follows the questions I ask most of the time, and that's it. I will give them the script like Jordan Belfort give to the Stratton Oakman employees, and they just started closing. And in the beginning, it worked well, but after some time, I realized one thing. I remember the sales training call I had with my sales team of 5, and I literally was reviewing one of the sales calls my closer had, and I got pissed off. And you may ask me why? Because you have script, they should be trained enough, etc. In reality, I realized they ask so surface level questions because these questions are written in the script. So they don't think actually, they just read the script without any thought. And I realized, bro, we lose so many sales. Imagine having 5 salespeople doing the same mistakes. That's fucking terrible. So what I did immediately, I started taking more group calls and I said to them, fuck the script, don't use that shit. You can look at it to remember what things you can mention in the sales call, but never use the script to close deals. And also, by the way, good tip for you, if you manage your sales team, do that twice a week, 3 times a week, or 1 time a week. Sales call review. You or your sales director, if he's better or she's better at training salespeople. Because all of the people watching this call, they will learn from mistakes from other closer. Easy. So now I'm going to share with you trust first sales framework. Okay, so the first step, it's, like I said, trust. That's the first step of the conversation. You need to establish trust immediately. Then what we do? We do discovery. Terrible writing, I know. Then we do financial model. This tip is specific for money-making niches because I mainly work with this. So if you wanna get people more money, you need to prove to them that your acquisition method, your strategy actually can generate them the results they want. So in that case, we use financial model. If it's not related to BizUp industry, starting as MMA course, making your first 10K online, etc., you don't need to use financial model, but still you need to use something similar to show them that's actually real to get the result they want. That's it. Then what we do is the future pace. I struggle with that a lot, honestly. After some time, I realized that I haven't used that. Still, I was closing, but once I implemented a small tweak, it changed the game. I started closing much more calls after implementing just future pacing, because these I knew, but this was new to me. The point number 5, and that's the close. Is the best time for most of the closers, but it's the end of the process. It's not like you start with mindset, oh, I will close you. Close is the most important. No, fuck no. These steps determine if the close is even possible. Because most people start a sales call by pitching, and that's the biggest mistake. Instead, the structure should look like this. So build trust, so have a real conversation. Listen to what your prospect is saying, actively listen, and make sure you understand their situation. So if you're not sure about something, just ask them more questions, have a better picture of their situation. Because if you can't understand their current state, how are you supposed to help them? Maybe they're already covered and you can't help them. Easy. Second, discovery. Ask about their business, their life. I mainly work with B2B, so you ask more business-oriented questions, marketing, sales processes. Then financial model. Obviously, if you work in like marketing, sales, processes, B2B stuff like making ROI, that's additional step. So future pacing, to make a long story short, you help them visualize the result they want. They need to feel that what they get, the outcome, the desired state they're looking for, is actually attainable using your unique methodology, unique mechanism. Because your offer needs to fit the desired state they want to be in. They need to believe that your offer is the vehicle that will take them to future pace. So now when you understand the structure, I will tell you the 3-level pain discovery, how to do that properly. Because discovery is like 90% of sales success. I truly believe that. Even when I work with my salespeople, most of the time I focus on training them on discovery. That's the most important part. So then we start with surface. That's the first level of pain, general. Then we go to business impact. Then we go to personal impact. That's very important and underrated. Even myself in B2B sales, because I close on many offers, in marketing especially, sales, operations, etc. In the US, Europe countries, doesn't matter. And what I realized with my sales skills, I was kind of good at B2B sales, like asking for numbers, getting the outcomes they want, but I struggle with this. And that's when you raise your level. That's the biggest level of discovery thing. Because at the end of the day, people are not here just to make money. That's not the fact. People want to have more vacations, send their kids to better school, make sure their family is covered. So that can be the real reason, not just making money. So if you just ask someone, yeah, why do you want to make 20K per month? That's even good, because most of the time they will tell you about how it affects their life if they increase their revenue and profit. Because I'm telling you from experience, in my sales organization, I realized that my salespeople went only on this aspect. So they ask, what's your biggest problem right now? And that's the level 1. Great closers always go deeper. So they can ask, for example, the question, how is this affecting your business? That's the second layer question, and that's good. And then when someone opens up to you, then you can ask, how is that affecting you personally? Because people don't buy just because they have a problem. They buy when the problem starts affecting them emotionally. Step 5, financial modeling. So instead of telling someone, yeah, we'll grow you to this number, you show them the math. So I will give you example of financial model, especially in BizOps space. That's the way to go. So let's say we have offer price $10K. We want to scale business to goal is 100K per month. That's the goal. So it's actually very easy. If you have 10K offer, you want to go to 100K per month, you need to make how many sales? 10 clients. That's what you do for your clients if you sell the growth, marketing, sales processes, like I do. Then you go deeper, because once you want to have 10 clients, you need to have specific amount of appointments showed. So let's assume you have 25% of close rate. Some people can mislead this conversion rate, but I mean specifically close rate. So in order to get 10 clients, we need to have 40 calls showed. Very important one, because not everyone is showing up on the calls. So let's assume we have 80% of show-up rate. So the amount of people that actually show up to the conversation, show-up rate. So in that case, so to make math easier, we need to have around 50 calls booked into calendar. Because from this 50, we'll take 40. That's the math, based on math. And this math creates the certainty. We can go further and further. So how many leads we need to get? What's our conversion rate on booking page? Where people book calls, from how many leads we have actually meetings. So let's say we need to have 3 leads to get 1 sales call. For example, just giving you some basic overview. I will probably record a new video about this, like literally breaking down how to do financial model properly. And now let's go to the point 6, future pacing. Because that was the thing that actually I misunderstood from the beginning. I felt uncomfortable asking people for these things. And I was thinking, why shouldn't even ask them? What if they will be pissed off by the fact that I'm asking the personal questions. But at the end of the day, that's why people do this in the first place. Why do they set up business? Not just to make money. They want to provide better for the family, etc. I mentioned that before, so I will not repeat myself 10 times. So instead of saying, our service will help you, you ask questions like, imagine 6 months from now on. What would change if the problem was solved? What becomes possible for your business? How would that affect your personal life? Because people buy outcomes, not services. So future pacing allows them to experience emotionally the result they are looking for. In that case, I mean the outcome. The step number 7, loss aversion. Because humans tend to hate more losing than winning. Humans are more motivated to avoid loss than pursuing gain. That's why this specific question I'm going to share with you is so powerful. What happens if nothing changes in the next 12 months? Such a powerful question. Because now the prospect starts thinking about lost revenue, wasted time, alternative costs, and actually missed opportunities. Because we need to make sure on the sales call that cost of doing nothing is higher than the amount of investment they need to make in your program or service. And cost of doing nothing is the most persuasive argument. And you need to bring that almost on every conversation you have. And now I will share you the classic one, the point 8, the silence close. Because after you're telling the price, always do this, silence. Most people cannot tolerate silence. And I know that from my experience, because in the beginning when I was starting closing my deals, I wasn't able even to do silence. It was so uncomfortable to me. But I realized when I start yapping after just telling the price, it drastically increases the chance that they will get some objections. So you have harder time closing them. And sometimes I remember the call I had 1 year ago with one of the businesses I closed personally, and I was sitting with the guy on the Google Meet for 3 minutes straight without telling anything. And you know what happened? I closed. That was one of the hardest sales conversations I ever had. The guy was skeptical. He even haven't want to see my offer. And I literally did everything I'm teaching right now to close this guy, and then I was silent for 3 minutes. I literally did this. I was sitting in front of him, looking onto camera like this, and in the meantime I just took a sip of water. Easy, classic, but very important. And now when it comes to step number 9, why scripts kills sales. Oh fuck. Because what the script does, it creates the fake conversation, broken report, and actually no trust, which is crucial, like I said in the beginning of this video. And one of the biggest mistakes I see in sales today is relying too much on scripts. Scripts make conversation feel unnatural, and great closers don't memorize scripts. They listen and respond in the real time. They treat the call like a real conversation, not just a performance. And one tip for you, if you do the sales yourself or you manage sales team, teach them this principle. I told that last time to my salespeople. If someone says something about their business situation, ask the next question connecting to the previous question. That makes your conversation natural, and people see that you actually listen to them. Easy. So if you remember only one thing from this video, remember this. Sales is not about pushing people. Sales is about transferring belief. Believe that you understand their problem in detail. You know how to actually solve it, and you can help them reach their goal. Once that belief exists, the sale becomes natural. So if you manage your sales team in your coaching, consulting, or high-ticket service business, and you believe your sales team is not performing to its best, feel free to book a call with me below. I will audit your sales process, marketing process, to find the bottlenecks that actually keep your business to growing to the point where you want. Also, you can message me on IG, link in the description. And for now on, I want to encourage you to watch my different video about managing salespeople best practices. You should see that somewhere on the screen. That was also the banger based on my personal story of managing my own agency sales team. So thank you for watching the video, and see you on the next one.